Hey, we're live. It's time for the Meta Fix, where we take a little bit of time and talk about those weird outside of the specific discussions for HeroClix. I try to keep things on a high level discussion. I won't try to give the answers too definitively, but I will at times, give opinions or ideas that will kind of direct you in towards where I'm going, as it were. Today, our topic is one I think I've talked about quite a few times. Always kind of has to come back around, just because the conversation comes up a lot. Sorry, I'm just kind of there. We go. Just kind of comes up a lot, and that discussion is in regards to our budget for the game of HeroClix and how we plan on spending our money with the game. So there's multiple approaches to how we spend our money when it comes to a collectible game. There's no one right answer. First of all, so I'm gonna just lead with that. It is impossible to say how much you should be spending on this game. There are ways to alleviate certain cost issues, and how to try to manage things, as it were. But for the most part, you're going to have to kind of sail your own boat on this one, if that kind of makes any degree of sense. I think it'll make sense a little bit more as we go. So, the first thing I want to kind of cover is, myself as the baseline, and then explain why I'm actually the exception rather than the rule. So I'm actually going to describe myself as the high level of, this is where people who kind of understand how they're investing, why they're spending in HeroClix, and how much they can kind of manage. Now, I do have to preface this with a little bit of my spending is alleviated by our wonderful friends over at WizKids. They do provide us with a brick, so we have to take that into consideration to a certain degree. What I will say is we do, if we weren't provided a brick by WizKids, we would still buy a case and a half of HeroClix for every set. So we do acquire that. And we put a little bit of work into our videos of making it, so it's not like it's completely free. It does, cost us a fair bit of time, but we love sharing the videos with you. Anyway, that neither here nor there. Our baseline, of course, then personal cost is a case, even though we would invest in a case and a half were it not for the extra bonus. Now, it's hard to say whether or not you can, come out there with your own HeroClix channel and get a brick. I do encourage that. The more HeroClix channels there are, the more potential audiences there are to discover the game, and I love that idea just in general. So yeah, please, if you want to get in on the game of the unboxing game, a number of other channels have started doing unboxings as well. Get out there and do that. That is, of course, one of those exceptions to the rule sort of situations. But we invest in a case, and now when we get a case of HeroClix, here is our intention. Our intention is to get a chase. That is our only expectation. Aside from that, we'll probably see a prime, and then outside of that, on average, you see 2 or 3 super rares per brick, so we average about 5 super rares per case, and then a series of commons, uncommons, and rares. Now, where is our value in all of this? Our personal family value, myself, Amber, and Alexis, our daughter who plays, we have 3 people kind of enjoying this collection. What's more is we play very casually at our stores, so there are chances for our commons and uncommons and rares to see a lot more play. Our super rares kind of headstoning a couple of those here or there. But, the way we play in the store doesn't reflect the need for investment for us. So then where do we invest? Well, we invest in our teams, obviously. Certain things, we kind of we do in other situations. For instance, like the upcoming Black Widow set, we will get a single box of that. That will usually get you an entire set of those particular types of sets, with the exception of the mass market stuff. so on and so forth. Yes, I haven't gotten into singles yet, but this is how we do our initial investing in cents. So we get that lump sum in the first place, a case and a half in our case, as well as a countertop display in those situations. And of course, the WWE stuff, I'm such a fan that I have no choice but to get all of it. That is the fanboy Jason that you're talking to. And that's going to be a person that we kind of describe in our cost, who's buying what, and what it's going to take to do that. So give it time. I am all over the place. Give me a second. Had a bit of a camera microphone mismatch there, so just had to get it back on track there. Anyway, so going back to where we need to be as far as that. We are big collectors. We do tend to get most of, if not an entire collection of most sets. Lately, we've been dialing it back, primarily because we don't play as much on camera as we used to, which is a shame. But that that factored in and let us, we needed more to vary our content. As a result, because we don't do that, we kind of work off of what we get from our case and a half, and work from there. Now it's a collectible game, which means trading other players is an option depending on what you receive in your random boosters. Sometimes you get stuck with what was the figure from the last set? The Starbrand. We all know there's that chase where you can't give it away. And that happens. So from there, we have to do kind of cost analysis of what do we want as far as chases are concerned versus what did we get. Now, a prime example of some unfortunate luck would have been our X-Men animated series stuff. We didn't get Jason Wingard. And, well, his price went way up. And that's a thing that we'll discuss as well later, is that things skyrocket when they're useful. So our investment then becomes what teams do we want to build, and then we do our best to take it easy, find the best deals, find the best prices. We always try to stay local. We're in Canada, so we actually have a separate level of complication, and other countries will have more complications, more so than we have. Like, for instance, when I try to receive figures from individuals in the States, there's the custom forms that they have to sign are ridiculous, and I didn't realize that, where we just kind of send it over with like an estimate on how much it's worth. I don't know, but apparently it's a big pain in the butt to send something to another country in the U.S. We didn't know. But I will try to deal with players before I deal with stores. A couple reasons I'll do this. For one, stores set a value and their goal is profit, and that's not to be taken away from them. Stores need to make a profit, and when they crack open a case and pull out singles, they have to get back the value of their case somehow, and it's not easy for them in a lot of cases. But, of course, because they have the top of the line, bottom line to draw, if I deal with individuals, there are less things that I have to kind of account for, and it's very easy for individual players to undercut a store because I cracked a pack and I got a chase. So my initial investment is $15. My chase is worth $60 at a store, and I sell it for $50. I'm still at a profit because I'm a person. I like, this thing is just happened to be extra, and it's a lot easier to deal with people because of that. Now, barring the fact that if I can't get it local, I can't get it aside, I will find myself a Troll and Toad or Cool Stuff Inc. Price compare, see who wins, get as much as I can in a single buy. Again, because I'm sending it all to Canada, there aren't a lot of singles retailers online in Canada. It's one of those things that we kind of have to deal with. We can't get the cheap shipping like I can with, say, Magic the Gathering. And that is something I do deal with, so I kind of understand. There's not as many singles carriers for HeroClix. My goodness, my camera is just being a nightmare today. I'm getting out of sync all over the place. So bear with me. I'm going to be kind of jumping in and out of that title screen while I resync my camera. All right. That said, when we go do our singles hunting, we get what we want for our teams. Barring any... Now, here's the situation that happens. Is sometimes locally or across the world, what you want is sold out. You just can't get it. That's where borrowing comes in. That is something that I usually do more so in tournaments than anything, and it's always a last resort for me. I'm a weirdo. I can't be borrowing people's things. I don't understand it. I can't. I don't do it, and I try to avoid it. But, when I have to, I will. But of course, I'm the first person to loan people everything just because of how I collect. So I am also, I like to say, we're the collector. We try to get as much as we can. We try to get most of a set. There will be things where it gets extreme. It's like, is it worth it? Am I going to play it? No. All right, forget it. I used to just get everything for the sake of having everything so that I could try everything. Nowadays, I do that a lot less, just because at home practice with other people, I've become accustomed to just doing a proxy if I have to. Proxy being a fake version of the character, so we can just have it on the board so we can roll the dice and make the thing happen. It's not very difficult to manage. Trust me on that. So, now, a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't have your kind of budget. And that's correct. A lot of players don't have a budget. We have two incomes. One of them, is a little bit more lucrative than the other, but we pay our bills and we budget for our hobby. So not a lot of people have that budget, the same kind of budget that we have for our hobby. So what do you do as a player? Well, the best way to manage a tight budget where you are trying to just strictly build your team and not overspend is actually strictly in the singles market. Buy specifically what you want. But, and I have to caveat this, if you are strictly playing competitive play, you will probably come close to spending as much on a team as I spend on my initial budget. Unavoidable. It's just a reality of the thing. It's the reality of the beast. So, but there are ways that you can help manage, kind of displace a lot of this stuff. So, where we want to try to get to is that place where you're doing as much in playing the game and receiving as much, and then putting it back out and getting back in what you need. HeroClix is a more difficult game to do that in than, say, Magic the Gathering. There are games out there where you're just not going to do that. For instance, Warhammer, comparable in the sense that it's another miniatures game. But I buy a unit in Warhammer, I paint it, so I've now costed purchasing, building, painting. That's time and materials, and that's a lot of budgeting. Now, once I've budgeted that, and I've built that, and I put that together, I have a decoration, a game piece, and not much is coming from it. There's no financial in from that. So HeroClix, we can buy, sell, trade, do that kind of stuff. So things can work for you in that degree. And we'll get into that in a bit. But if you are going to be a guy who plays competitively, but strictly builds your teams, here comes the hard part. You have to go to the tournaments. So you do have to cost yourself out for that. Now, part of going to tournaments is that you don't necessarily have to win to do well out of a tournament. You just have to participate and get the right things out of it. WKOs are your lower end. Now, what will happen is WKOs will have a participation level pricing, and then they'll have top 8 pricing. Of course, the winner of the tournament gets the best value in pricing. Second, third, fourth will get equal values, and then everybody else will have some kind of thing. So, what you'll end up doing is you will acquire certain things of value. And what's more is those WKO prizes are actually, they're the equivalent of pre-release con exclusives. So what'll happen is the top 4 prizes of a WKO will actually become the con exclusives later on, or harder to get. And they'll be at their peak value when you get them. So if you don't see value in you maintaining them, that's where you can get some trade value out of it. In addition, your weekly OP kit or monthly OP kit tournaments, borrow somebody's teams, be polite. You'll walk out with something on those in a lot of cases. There's some minor value in those, and you can turn that around. And this is like the flip it sort of mentality. It's like get it and then flip it somehow. Don't. The hardest thing is going in, winning the figure, and turning around, and being like, "Who wants to buy this?" Everybody's gonna turn to you as like, "I wanted that figure, you jerk." And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. So go do it on the internet, or wait for somebody to come to you and say, "Hey man, I wanted that figure. You mind if I give you like $5 for it?" Monthly OP kits, you're probably gonna get $5. They're pretty easy to come by. But then when you go to your conventions and whatnot, conventions prize fairly low when it comes down to it. So like Worlds, Nationals, you get prizing in the top 32. You also get some con exclusives for like top half of qualifiers, bottom half of qualifiers also get a different con exclusive type thing. Like there is value in all of this stuff. And then sometimes that value jumps, drops, and then whatnot. A good example is the Mandarin rings. I've got so many extra Mandarin rings now, and now the Mandarin has increased value on them. So you gotta... The idea of getting this stuff in and using it to your value. Now, you may not be getting financial value from it, but you could be getting other figures. This is how you move figures around. This is how part of it. And this is all like, and this is where what you're doing here is you are buying a single team and running that team through the market and as best you can. So let's say you've spent about $350 on your team. Your goal now is to try to maintain a cycle. Some players do this, and the better you play, the better you do at the game, the easier this actually becomes. It actually becomes significantly easier if you are placing higher. That's just unavoidable. But you're not getting a specific financial number out of top prizing. You are trying to turn it into some degree of other HeroClix value. And you want to try to keep it inside of the game of HeroClix. And this is how you can do it on the lowest budget in competitive play. If you are a casual player, a brick is enough in a lot of cases. Flip and move around a couple things, grab a couple commons, grab a couple uncommons, couple rares, couple super rares, get what you need for your storybook teams. Because if you're a casual kitchen table player, it's all you need. I mean, and honestly, if you are a casual player and you feel like you need to win, you're not a casual player. It's a misconception where it's like casually you kind of sit at the kitchen table and you try out a storybook team, and then you hope that WizKids did the stats right so that you realize that the supervillains are pretty strong, and how did the heroes figure this out? That's one of the cool things about the game. Anyway, so the casual player will usually just they're also, but at the same time they tend to be the big investors as well as the more comics they enjoy. So if there's a set with a bunch of characters that you like and you end up buying like cases of it and so on and so forth, you still kind of work on the fundamental of move it, flip it, and then get what you need, and then you're done. Whereas competitive players, here's where things start to get weird, and we're going to talk about watching the market now. So I want to use a couple examples that recently occurred. Wolverine, the super rare from Xavier's School. That figure started pretty mediocre as far as price at first. Because very few people understood the numbers game that was ahead. And the numbers game that was ahead was a month or two after the Xavier School set come out, Lila Cheney came out. And then all of a sudden we look at it and we go, wait a second, we can take these X-Men, we can move characters around, and then just call out some more with the ID cards. We don't have resources anymore, with one exception, which we'll talk about in a second. And I can use, so as a result, I can look at this. Wolverine's not unique. I can use multiples on a single team. And people did that. And what ended up happening is there is demand for just Wolverine, and this happens all the time. A single figure is in demand up and up and up, and the more and more that people want to buy of that individual figure, the more the price just skyrockets on. And it's like, as a whole, when I need one of a figure and you need one of a figure and 100 of us need one of a figure in order to compete in competitive play, that figure tends to hit like $30-40 on a super rare level. But then when you're talking about I need 3, you need 3, she needs 3, they need 3, uh-oh. Then we hit the $60, $70, $100 range. That's where things go nuts. And the prediction value on that is so hard to make. It's gotten to a point right now where I get hesitant about trading a chase that I have 2 of sometimes, just because I need to check if there is a team I can make with a non-unique chase. And by the way, I have like 2 or 3 Iron Mans if anybody wants them from Secret Wars. Is it Secret Wars Battle World? I think it was the Caveman Iron Man or Iron Fist. If anybody is looking for that. So that said, early detection on high value figures is astronomically important, and being aware of how things work. So going back to we went from Lila, and then we got the Blackbird, and things just got out of hand. It got nuts. We got crazy. You end up seeing how there are ways that you can manage certain degrees of your budget. Now, another thing that myself and Amber do is we don't maintain a sizable Golden Age collection. When a set rotates out of Modern, we're basically done with it, and I tend to fire sale the figures. Now, am I making my money back? No. Where I make my money back is going to conventions, trading the figures, selling a couple things that I get extras of. I keep my convention collection until they could rotate, and then I sell it all, and I fire sale all this stuff. And I don't get a ton of money from it, but I get enough that I kind of get a case from the next set just after rotation or something to that such a degree. But it also keeps a bit of a rotation and some degree of financial recovery. There is some self-sustaining levels of, like, not fully sustaining, but some aid that HeroClix can add if you just know how to sell and buy. And so knowing the value long-term of a thing is really where it comes down to. So if you bought early in Wolverines, you won big time, but you are now in that realm of like danger where there's about 4 or 5 months left of tournaments. If you've got more than enough that you need, or you find you're using one of them as opposed to 3 of them these days, it might be now is a good time to dump 2 of them or 1 of them and kind of coast the rest of the way. Because if you're like me and you just maintain in Modern, I'm not playing Magic right now. If you maintain in Modern, you can just know and predict what you can start to get rid of, what you can start to phase out. Now, going back to this player who is not me, but is working on a budget, there is value to be had in sealed and battle royales at certain venues. So, sealed tournaments at launch. Great time to buy some, you get your hands on 2 packs and then maybe a couple extra packs off the shelf here and there. There's not as much value to you as there should be. But you pull a chase. Now we've got the sales game to go. Earlier you sell, the better. All right, there are 2 types of people, and I'm talking to both of you right now. Buying early is when it's going to cost the most. And that's just the way the cookie's going to crumble. If you want it now, you do have to understand. So we're just for an example, we are currently, if you're watching this in the future, this video was filmed in pre-release season of Captain America and the Avengers. And Captain America and the Avengers, the chases are selling for $100 plus right now because the set isn't officially out. So, what are the factors in this? Because the set's not officially out, there isn't the mass market production that's out in the world. Right now, the figures that are out there are just the ones that have been opened in a pre-release. Perfectly fine. Not an issue. You do have to understand, because there's less of them, chases, there are significantly less of them, they are going to cost more than ever. So, if you feel you need to have a Ghost Rider or a Namor or a Ultron now, this is going to cost you the most. But you will have it. And then if you're like me and do your initial investment in the case and you don't pull it, you have no regrets here. But if I buy it, let's say it's me. I buy this Ultron, and then I open my case when the set comes out, and I get an Ultron. I can't sell this Voltron for nearly close to what I bought it at. And that hurts a little, right? So you need to understand this. Now, if you are limited in your investment in the set, you've looked at the set and you said, I want that figure, I want that figure, I want that figure. I got a good news for you. Your budget's going to stretch. Because if you only have like 3 or 4 figures that you need, you don't have to buy a case. You don't have to go to sealed. You don't even have to crack open a pack. You wait for those singles to show up on Troll and Toad, and the second they're out, you go, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. And if your budget's the same as mine, good. You got some extra for the next set if there's more than one thing that you want. If your budget's a little lower, even better. You know, you've invested in the things that you wanted, and you got them. But if you buy now, this current moment of pre-release for any set, if you are buying then, do understand you are spending more. Now, if you are on a budget, for the love of God, don't buy now. Like, there's nothing you need that bad, I don't think. And because the other thing is, a set is not legal until it's a week after the release of the set. Pay attention to when your tournament is. If your there's WKOs surrounding the release of Captain America and the Avengers, but some of them are occurring on the weekend of the 9th. I believe it's the 9th. Give me a second. The 8th and the 9th. Captain America is not legal that weekend. Though next weekend, the 15th, 16th, they will be legal. Unfortunately, locally, it's constructed on the weekend of the 8th and the 9th and sealed on the weekend of the 15th and the 16th. So I can't come up with new ideas, but that means I don't have to do any early investing in Captain America. I don't have to rush to get anything now in order to practice with my team or have my team handy. I don't need to do anything early. I just need to get my team now, which works on the current metagame, and I probably already have the figures for it, or I can just come up with stuff that I have. So going back, we are now at that stage of like rotations around the corner. We can start looking now. It's like, what has been phased out of the competitive metagame that I can still sell now for more than I will get when a piece goes Golden Age? Because here's the unfortunate thing about Golden Age. It isn't particularly well supported by WizKids. By not particularly well supported, I mean, it isn't. It is not supported by WizKids. And I understand that. This is not like other games where, because it's a licensed game, it's harder for long-term support. Licensing agreements for a certain while, it's like we didn't even know you still had that figure. Why are we having a conversation about this? And as a result, when we start talking about things that are long gone, that this doesn't interest, because there's no return on it. WizKids releases a limited amount. Once all those cases are out in the world, they're done. Wash your hands of it. That's all they need to do. Next set. And then once we get to that modern age cut, when things go golden, they lose a lot of value. Now, on a local level, you might have some value. The store I run tournaments at, we do try to maintain the value of your figures. And by the value of your figures, I mean, I want you to be able to play them whenever you want. So that's why I run nothing but Golden Age tournaments. And the only time I'm not running a Golden Age is if someday I happen to get a WKO, or if someday I happen to get, on the days that I run sealed. I don't think I'm going to be running anything other than a WKO at max. And even if I do run a WKO, that's up in the air too. I don't know how stores get those or manage those, or who I have to have a discussion with about that. So Golden Age value is only as valuable as your local game kind of has it. So understand that, and then understand where you can and can't move things around. So I have now spoken to competitive players for the most part. Casual players. You love your stuff, buy your stuff, get your stuff, enjoy your stuff. If your stuff is a little too expensive right now, it means it's too good. It's probably not for a casual game anyway. Wait till it goes golden. It'll go down and way down in price. I mean, I was actually looking for some examples today, and I was on eBay looking at the Iron Pharaoh. Now, the Iron Pharaoh at his peak was approximately 100. He went from it's like 30 to 60 to 110, and now I think the only recently purchased one was at 25 canceled $25 sale. Some of them still hit about, there's still some like buy it nows at $35, $40, but none of them have sold. So there is some degree of value in older chases, but not much. So make sure, you're keeping the stuff that you want. And the casual players, that's the conversation I have for you. You're going to keep your stuff anyway. You guys have fun with it. I'm now opening the floor to questions. If you have any questions about managing a budget in HeroClix, or you feel like I maybe missed something that you would need to know, by all means. Andrew Jackson, BR, cannot wait for HeroClix Transformers. You're going to be waiting a long time. The deal between Hasbro and WizKids, man, it was about on like models, so there's no HeroClix ahead for that. And Sleepy Cat Zero is talking some strategy, nothing financial, but I'm going to keep the conversation going while I figure out that stuff. Sorry, like I said, I'm going to flip in and out of the title when I see myself get out of. I should. Long story short, a little bit of behind the curtain stuff. When you see me going out of sync, it's because OBS has decided that I don't want to sync up with the sound right now. What was I about to do? I was about to look something up. Oh, Eitri. That's what it was. Eitri, along with the Thor. I mean, Eitri's a great figure. Don't get me wrong. I like what he does. I have seen him in action. And I love watching my opponent squirm when I say, here are the objects that I'm going to present your problem with. What do you think I deserve? Because if you pick the right 3 objects, your opponent's going to go, well, I don't want you to have that one. Oh, but if I do that, then you get to choose one of the other 2. So it's just a matter of knowing. It's a weird mental game. It's find the P, but making your opponent try to overthink it. Specifically, what was the example I had? It was 3 gems. Let's say you got 3 of the Infinity Gems, and you want 2. You pick 2 that are like really good, and then you use something that would be insane on the Thor, with the expectation that the insane object will never get on him. The example I had was never originally Thor. It was always somebody who would be amazing with Mjolnir, but also equally good with one of 2 other objects. So you present them with these 3 objects, and they're like, oh, I'm not letting you have Mjolnir. I'd be like, all right, that's fine. I'm going to pick this one, which is more provable for the situation. They look at it and go, oh, that's also very good. And that's the trick of Eitri. So I don't know specifically what objects you'd want to use with the Chase Thor. I mean, I think if I see somebody show me 3 objects and one of them's the demonic ring, forget it. You're not getting the demonic ring, because that's one of the big weaknesses on Thor. So then I have to see what other 2 objects you'd want to use, and it'd probably be like, honestly, the rings are really good options, and starting with rings in your starting area is such a potent possibility of potential power. So I mean, it'd actually almost be better, because Eitri's 3 objects don't count as your objects on the board necessarily. Yeah. You can still get other objects on the board, so you have the 3 from Eitri, then you have whatever objects you wanted out on the board. So whatever you need to have, make sure you have a TK. I don't know who's Asgardian has TK, but we're on the track for a proper Asgardian team for that. But going back into financials, I don't see much going on in the way of questions, so we're going to wrap this up and just say, be smart with your money. HeroClix is just a hobby. There's no financial reward, so it is hardly a job. I do this show out of just enjoyment of the game and wanting to have a conversation with people, even though it's mostly one-sided. I love the conversation in general. Understand that because HeroClix is a hobby, you need to just add it. It needs to be spent with disposable income. Uh, your love of HeroClix shouldn't be shouldn't be the thing that's making it hard to pay rent, shouldn't be making it hard to pay your bills. It's a hobby, so make sure you're spending it with money you actually have to spend. Don't let it interfere with your life. If As far as budget keywords, Nova Milkshake wants to know in the chat, there are a lot of keywords that you could build teams with that you can do so on a budget. An example, actually, oddly enough, you know what? I'm not going to say Sentinel, just because my Sentinel team happens to have 11 Sentinels, and I don't think I would call those budget, because I spent Battle Royale money on some of those Sentinels. But Mystical is a keyword. I mean, also the WWE guys. So anything you can make with WWE, Monster, Mystical, Celebrity, WWE, like, I would consider those guys budget because they have a baseline value. You know what you get. You get that figure out of there, and you're good to go. Yeah. So. Yeah. Anything you start to kind of get Mystical, also like Monster and Mystical as well. You can build budget teams. You can also build very expensive teams. The wider the team goes, the more varied you can get on the budget. So like. An example is a Cosmic team. I can build a super cheap Cosmic team. I could also build the most expensive Cosmic team you've ever seen in your life. A weird balance in both directions. So picking budget keywords is... I'm not so much trying to tell people how to play HeroClix poor. I'm trying to more or less discuss the fact that you need to maintain your budget for HeroClix, and the best practices if you're going to be competitive. And there are certain situations you're going to run into where some teams just don't work out, and you may find yourselves in a situation where you do have to spend money. Another key budget keyword before I start rambling off again: Avengers. You can actually build as a competitive team. You can build a team with multiple Medusas, Voyager, and I've just described commons and uncommons. Throw some gems on there. Throw some AIM agents on there. You've barely broken the bank. It's super cheap. Barely gonna dent the wallet. So unless Medusa's gone up in price, I should probably check Troll and Toad before I open my fat mouth. Like, I've had that happen where it's like, oh, this figure shouldn't okay. It's $10. Ignore me. I'm stupid. Things like that have happened to me. She was in Black Panther and the Illuminati, if I remember correctly. A to Z. Yeah, Demonic Ring, Soul Gem, Enchanted Crowbar. Like, all of those are really great items for Thor. I'm 50-50 on the Soul Gem. I think a Power Gem would be scarier on Thor. Just because... Imagine Thor with extra damage. But Soul Gem's not bad. The extra defense can go a long way, and you can get that healing out of his range. It's just... You get maximum value if you're getting beat up with that Thor. I'm always uncomfortable with that. Also, extra defense never works for me. Medusa's only $3. So, anyway, yeah. So, manage your budget as best you can. Understand your limitations, and then beyond that, develop good relationships with your fellow players. Because the last thing I want to mention. One of the reasons that a lot of HeroClix competitive players have started forming teams is to increase your library of characters. If 5 of us have a collection and 2 of us are using some figures, but 3 of us don't have those figures, but these 2 aren't using those figures and have those figures, they can help. And that helps manage your budget as well. So forming teams of HeroClix players to help practice with, help discuss the game with, strategize with, come up with ideas with, can actually also help alleviate the budget on a number of terms. Edward Sheldon has talked about it a number of times. He runs Team Phoenix Nest, and also manages a certain degree of budgetary management to that. Manages hotel rooms for everybody, and just kind of gets everybody in one place. Manages the money in that direction and helps them out. And the reason I say that specifically is he does a lot of talking about that and explaining to that, but he manages a big team. For us, the married with Clix and Meta Lab guys, we have like 3 or 4 of us, and we all split a hotel room, and we're all content to kind of be in a hotel room and chit chat with each other, manage our collections there. We bring certain amounts of figures, and borrowing stuff kind of occurs. Bring meta stuff, and all this also helps alleviate a little bit of degree of budget because it costs a lot of money to travel. So if you can get a budget in a car, share some gas money, good. Hotel fees kind of come down in a lot of hotels the more people you have in the room. Other exceptions, of course, exist, such as Memphis for Worlds. That was a per person situation. So, but that said, I kind of want to be done with this. Want to thank everybody for watching. Throw it in the comments or email us if you have any further questions about trying to manage your HeroClix budget. It's really hard to give specific numbers, but if you do have some questions and you have a limited budget and you want to know what you can do with that, but you want to be competitive, let me know, and I will do my best to help you out because believe it or not, it's not as hard to be competitive as we think it is, so long as we can manage our money and develop relationships. Putting those two things together will really go a long way towards helping you as a HeroClix player become competitive without having to empty your wallet and see moths every time WizKids releases something. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful evening, and take out some stuff, get some practice in, because practice will always make your teams a little bit better. Have a good one.